You're very welcome to the Racing Room podcast. It's Ronan Groom here again in the hot seat, and we're coming back at you on a Friday. Last week went so well with our numbers and engagement, perhaps because the tone of this podcast was the perfect fit for the first week of January, but we're here to give it a go anyway to see if Friday is the way forward for 2026. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a big weekend podcast now. We're not going to have Harry Stewart Moore run his rule through the Lanzarote hurdle looking for two each way things against the favourite. We're still going to maintain the style of the podcast as it's always been. We're going to obviously be taking on the big topics, taking on your questions and that discussion going forward. With the exception of this week, we're not going to have a racing review, just because there's been no racing really to talk about. So before we do get stuck into our topics, just a gentle reminder that if you watch the show each week, we very much appreciate it if you gave us a like or a subscribe on YouTube, or you follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Obviously, it helps us to grow the show to a bigger audience, but it also will help you as well. You'll be notified straight away when the podcasts come out, especially when we change it up and go on a Friday instead of a Monday. So without further ado, we'll kick on with the topics, gentlemen. I hope you're all well. I haven't said hello yet, but we'll just get stuck in here and let you away. And we'll talk about our first point this week will be the Friday Night Live show on ITV, which is due to air pending a inspection at Wolverhampton that's going on right now as we speak. We probably get news of that.
We've got an update there. We have an update. It's now been put back till 12 o'clock, so all the potential speed daters are on tenterhooks. Yes, midday inspection now. They had a lot of rain.
Hopefully it goes. Hopefully it goes ahead. They're giving it every chance, it seems, but we can still talk about the story anyway, because it's obviously going to be coming up in the next few weeks. And just give you a bit of background. So Friday's ITV racing coverage is due to be hosted by Megan Nichols and Leona Mayer, and the new series will be aimed exclusively at those between age of 18 and 25, with the meeting expected to include DJ sets between races, speed dating, and free drinks and transport from Nottingham and Kiel for Invades ticket holders. Invades founder Don Matchum said on ITV's opening show programme last weekend, it's about bringing that dance music culture and party-like atmosphere into the sport. I know for some people that's not what they're after, but for a lot of young people that element is an attraction if they potentially wouldn't consider horse racing as their primary sport. It's important that sport welcomes in new people, and bringing these elements into the sport does attract a new customer, and ultimately bringing a new customer into the sport is good for everyone. Tickets for Friday's meeting are free for Invades and count holders, with future meetings set to cost £10. Tony, I'll give you the first innings here. What's your general feeling going into this new series, the Friday Night Live series on ITV? What should we expect? And if you're tuning in tonight, what are you thinking? What's your overall view on it?
Are you an Invades member, Tony? I can't remember.
Oh, yes. I'm a mature student, so I might enroll somewhere so I can get in for 10 quid, yeah. I don't know what to expect, to be perfectly honest with you. Judging from what Megan Nichols has been telling the Racing Post, it just sounds like the racing is going to be quite incidental to it, which will be a shame, because there's actually some decent class racing there. It's a 75 grand handicap and other stuff, but it sounds like it's going to be focusing on all the action away from the track, like I said, which will be a shame. Part of me thinks it's going to be an absolute cringe fest, but I'm really looking forward to watching tonight if it's on, because, like I said, it's God knows what's going to happen. I think it's quite cynical with all the students there for ITV to line up Megan Nichols, Leona Mayer, and Adele Mulrennan to actually host it. So I think it could be.
You couldn't have Luke Harvey, could you? Really?
Oh God, yeah. I don't know what to expect. It's kind of like, it's not me at all, but a part of me really wants to tune in and be actually horrified by it. But we'll see. But yeah, it doesn't bode well from what I've been reading about it.
I mean, it's not remotely for us, though, is it? I mean, this is a bit like going down to the under-12s disco and going, this music's rubbish. It's like this is not for us. And I think we've got to judge it on a totally different criteria. The real look, I think we can't spend all our lives saying they've got to do something, and then even before they started, say this is a complete disaster. They might be right. This might be the way to do it. This guy brings in numbers, whichever way you look at it. And if you're the test will be if you're converting anyone into a racing fan, even a casual racing fan. That will be the test, because what that you don't want this to be is just a nightclub night in the Midlands which has racing as the excuse for it, basically. And I think that's what you want to avoid. Some features of it are more concerning than others. I'm not sure the speed dating one. Racing is not a sport where people necessarily need to be encouraged on that front. But I suppose that these aren't racing people. And again, that element of it, I wonder if it's just a massive distraction from what the aim is, which is to get people, from the racing's point of view, to get people into racing. But look, well, we might not see tonight, which would be a pity. But let's wait and see.
Do you want to come in there?
Yeah, just wait and see, I suppose. I think what we hope it. I think it is going to be essentially just a club night that just happened to take place on a racecourse, and then hopefully migrate a couple of people to being racing fans. I think that is essentially what it is. Deferring judgment. I hope it's a success. I think it's the whole speed dating thing. I think is, if you're 18 to 21 and you're at university, it wasn't economic theory that was on my mind at that age when I was studying economics. So it's unsurprising that there is speed dating there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's one of the few instances where I'm absolutely delighted to be driving up to Dundalk, I suppose, and potentially missing it, I suppose. But that's just me, and I'm not the target audience.
But the thing I know we're going to come on to a few areas of it that I've outlined, but the one thing that really kind of like annoys me that we've had this kind of discussion, don't knock it, etc., give it time. We had that with the Racing League, which this is basically replaced.
That had no chance though, as well. Premier Racing League had no chance of making any difference. I thought this is something that's totally outside the.
But the Racing League was different. And everyone, unless you were getting paid from it, it was panned by everybody. That lasted 5 years, and someone's left in a £5 million baby there, deficit wise. So all this stuff is, don't knock it, etc., etc. I do get that, but racing did persevere with.
Yes,
they're duck with
racing. I think that's the first point.
It's because it has nothing else though as well. Racing League and Premier Racing, like. I know you can't knock stuff before you try them, but if ask me on day one of those, I said these are going to make absolutely no difference to anything. This might make a difference, so that's why I'm definitely open-minded about this and to give it a chance. And it won't appeal to me, but I think I'll be able to appreciate what it could potentially do. I just thought.
I think Tony, you're right that what the sport does need to get better at is deciding when an idea isn't working and stopping, and not everyone in it, including people who should perhaps be a little bit more scrutinized a bit more, just becoming cheerleaders for a bad idea for year after year.
Yeah, great.
For what it's worth, I think you can align this idea to the student race day over here, which sometimes people have a moan about, or they're going racing and they see, they're like, oh God, they're not even watching the racing or whatever. But like, I think about this when I went to the Limerick student race day when I was 18. I was first getting into racing. Now, fair enough, I was into racing, I was getting into it, but the people that I was going to it with didn't like racing at all. They were going there to get dressed up, to have to get on the piss early, etc. But that's what their people are into at that age. But they actually see racing as a thing they can do. And then later when they mature and they're not into speed dating and all that crack, that they've been racing before, they know, that was actually all right when you're young. And they're not going to go when they're 25 or 35 then expecting the same thing. But they've seen racing, they've been exposed to it. I'd be generally very positive on this, or be hopeful that this sort of idea could take off. And obviously we've seen with Invades they've done huge numbers to Cheltenham on New Year's Day being the most recent example. So I'd be pretty hopeful for it, definitely over the racing league anyway. But what do we think about this Dom Matchum, who's the kind of head of the whole thing? Tony, you sent us on, or you were watching the opening show last week with the clip, and I think he looked like he was like in Barbados or something, and he was talking away to Ollie Bellens Judy. What did you make of him in general, and what he's kind of bringing to the whole thing?
Well, by all accounts, he's a he's a very, very clever guy, very switched on. Obviously, he built up Invades from nothing. I think he's sold half of it to ARC, which is obviously why they've got this tie up, and
which is why he's in Barbados.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if he's going to be a Wolverhampton at -2 tonight, slipping on his ass when he's dancing. He's obviously very clever, and everyone you speak to, he's very persuasive and stuff like that. But one thing that really struck me with that interview with Ollie Bell was he didn't mention racing once. He didn't mention betting once. He was all into the gimmicky kind of thing. And what worries me is it's like there's nothing specific to racing in his spiel. I mean, he could move this on to any other sport, which is obviously testament to his business acumen. But so that's what worries me is, and he didn't strike me as particularly convincing. And even Ollie Bell throughout the interview was kind of like taken aback. And I think Ollie would probably be more receptive to this than the most on the ITV roster. He just didn't come. He didn't strike me as very kind of like involved in the sport. But then again, does he have to be? I mean,
he doesn't need to be. I don't think. Like his smartness is he spotted a gap in the market. Like I've been to uni, unbelievably, Harry. And thanks to the old Labour government easing the criteria to get in. I think some people who've been have probably been, and there's horse racing societies at universities, and they've got 20 lads in them that just like having a bet and going racing, and there's no business in that. Like he's had the very, very sensible and profitable idea of mixing that the societies in university where you've got a collective of young people with probably a student loan burning a hole in the pocket, who like to drink, like to go out, like to meet people of the opposite sex or same sex, and just realise that that's the gap in the market. I think him understanding betting and racing is the conduit for the profit there for him. It's not something that he's it's
this is just different skill sets getting to two people. He's totally outside racing. He's got something that racing certainly thinks it wants, and he can make money out of racing. I think we've got to be very careful with this idea that everyone that can help is within the circle of horse racing in some way.
This could be a win-win for everybody. In fairness,
maybe understandably, apparently he's quite. Harry spoke about the data, transferring these people into kind of like normal race days where they have to pay a bit more and pay for their drinks and pay for their own travel. Apparently he's very quite secretive about the data involved here. And
it's money, isn't it? The data is the money. You're not going to give them.
No, sorry, what sort of data is that, Teddy?
Following, he knows all the people that are going because obviously he supplies.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. No, the guest list must be very valuable, I would have thought.
And also, presumably, he's following up with that guest list of thousands. Have you gone again since, etc.
Yeah.
Racecourse. I mean, it's a very valuable kind of like set of information, isn't it? And so I think from the outside, we won't know. He will know. ARC will know.
Yeah.
Maybe the racecourses will know, but we won't have the information to judge him on.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Just to bring in one clip that was kind of doing the rounds this week on X and stuff of Dom Matchum was he was kind of publicly dismissive of welfare concerns. He was doing a racing conference, I think, with Nick Luck last year. Someone got a clip up of it, and after that, actually, I think it was Paddy Flood over on the IrishRacing.com podcast was talking about welfare as well. He said it's a great sport. We should be selling it more and not worrying about it more. And there is probably more money going into welfare issues than there is into promoting the sport, which, in my opinion, is wrong. That was kind of the same point that Don Matchum was making at the concert as well, at that conference as well. What do we think of that in general? Lads, Harry, do you want to come in there? Is there a point there?
Yeah, I think, listen, he didn't express it as well as he could, but I think that it was admirably frank in a way that we're too scared to talk about within the circle of horse racing. And there's so much performative stuff on welfare, particularly on X within horse racing, that it's becoming somewhat nauseating. There is not really a very firm line, in my view, between promoting the sport and welfare, because you can't. The biggest threat to the welfare in horse racing is not having enough money within the sport. So drawing a line between the promotion of it and the welfare of the animals is a mistake in the first place. The second point is that he is right, because I think that the question was something along the lines of, are people that you're getting involved, are they interested in welfare? Well, if what we are saying is that people can only come racing now if they have some kind of interest in the welfare of animals, then we've gone into some kind of lunatic asylum. And we're having enough problems getting people in anyway, without telling them that, trying to take moral high ground over people who haven't come in yet, telling them that as yet they don't care enough about the welfare of animals to actually be allowed to come and watch horse racing. This is a relatively novel concept to people in horse racing, let alone outside it. Then we get to the point of whether it is a sales point. I just do not. I think we get very confused by this. The idea that we look after the animals really well is something that we should be promoting outside the sport as a sales tactic. It should be presented as a given that these horses are looked after in racing. It seems to me like a restaurant promoting itself by saying, food poisoning down on 2025. It's just it is not the way to sell. And I think he made the point. It was quite crass. I think he says, "What a rubbish way to sell a party," or something like that. But he's right. If you're trying to get more people interested in this, immediately bringing the subject of the welfare of the animals into the equation, it's just crazy. It should be presented as a given that the horses are very well looked after.
You could say the same with gambling, with the please gamble.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you could say the same with bleach. Do not drink bleach on the back of it as well. Like, it's kind of like, come on. Like, we're repeating stuff that's just a given. I agree with that. Yeah.
But the problem,
the point on the, I think I can't remember the account on X was making, is that welfare needs to be number one. But no, he's not. I don't think Don Matchum or anyone else or Paddy Flood is saying the same. Not saying that welfare is important. It's obviously
you don't talk about it all the time, man. These people want you to just talk about it all the time, and it is not the way to sell it.
It's performative. It is performative. Yeah, it is. People are competing with each other as to who now talks more about who cares more, and it's doing nothing.
You've got to remember the Jim Crack dinner. I mean, Lord Allen reiterated that welfare was his number one priority. We'll come on to him in a moment. So you have to view that in the context. I mean, it's like you said, in one respect, it's quite admirable, but I think, and he doubled down on this in an interview with Nick Luck last year, apparently. Nick told me, and it comes across as, while honest, it comes across as, like you said, crass, maybe ham-fisted, etc. So by actually kind of like, producing it in that kind of way, it gives people another kind of like stick to hit him with, doesn't it? But like I said, the Paddy Flood interview was on a podcast. I mean, that was even more kind of like striking, because it comes across as perhaps even more dismissive. But I imagine you're talking about racing in Ireland as
Ireland's a bit different as well.
It's massively different. I mean, a horse is an animal, isn't it? There's always been that kind of differential between how the Irish.
And it's been a working animal. It's more a working animal as well.
Yeah, working animal.
It's more ingrained in people over here. Like, Jesus, the amount of people that have got horses in fields over here, and it's just like there's a lot more people closer to horses, and when you're closer to them, you're probably seeing them as animals, not to detract from taking care of them, but it's totally different. The people often pontificating on these topics fucking jump a mile if a horse went anywhere near them. So
I would.
So do I.
Okay, we leave it there on the Friday night live thing. Hopefully, he does get the go ahead, and we can see what it's all about tonight. We'll talk about Nick Luck's podcast on Wednesday, in particular, a news kind of point that he made about Lord Allen. So it was very interesting listening. He broke news on a disagreement between Lord Allen and the race courses of seemingly minor issue, but one that could have a lasting impact on the new BHA's chair's tenure, given the pushback from the race courses. I'm just going to quote Nick here from his podcast, because he's kind of the one who broke the news. So, um, Lord Allen's managed to pick a little scene with regards to data rights. He's picked an insignificant little scene, but has managed to irritate all the media rights holders. The BHA control management to the right of the official results, the distances, photo finishes, and matters to do with integrity post race, as well as a bit of clerical race day information. These are still packaged up as part of the media rights deals that media rights brokers, i.e., the Racecourse Media Group and Racing Partnership, sell to the bookmakers. So that is all bundled up as part of a package. They are administered by the BHA until 2028 under an agreement with the racecourses. But Lord Allen believes that this is something that is actually owned by the BHA and therefore can be charged separately or at a premium by the central governor and regulator of the sport rather than by the racecourses. It won't surprise you to know that this mission creep, as described by one racecourse representative, has been rejected wholeheartedly by the racecourses. So I think Nick went on to suggest that Lord Allen could walk away with regard to this set two with racecourses, and went on to discuss it further. Tony, do you want to? No, sorry, Harry. I'll go to you first here. Is this something that could lead to such a seismic kind of situation where you could just call it quits here, or what did you make of it in general?
Well, I mean, he's got the moody trot in the locker, hasn't he? Because he refused to join, if you remember, unless certain criteria were met. I have to say, I had understood one of those criteria to be the establishment of an independent board, which now seems to be more up in the air, judging by recent coverage. So I find that a bit confusing. We're looking very much through a glass darkly on this from the outside, and the media rights issues in horse racing and indeed the greyhound racing are very confusing. The control of the media rights by the racecourses is hugely valuable to them, and what gives them what we are all perceiving to be such a strong hand within the world of racing. When you look at all the different power players, racecourses do appear to have the whip hand, and that is because of these media and data rights that they have and are able to sell. It does seem to me reasonable, given the way that Lord Allen has come in, for him to say you need to bend on that. You need to be more flexible. It can't all it can't work on the basis that you just retain everything, sell them at prices you want to, and everyone else just has to put up with it. If indeed that is what he is saying, because it isn't really working for everyone at the moment, and that the money in racing does appear not necessarily always to be staying in racing as a result of the way that media rights agreements work. If I were him and I was saying that, and I'd come in on the basis of goodwill, understanding that there would be flexibility on media rights agreements, and then as soon as we come to it, the answer is sorry, we are not giving an inch because of the value of these to us. I'd be very tempted to walk. I mean, you're not going to achieve anything, and you're better off to walk and say, look, I can't achieve anything if people just aren't going to move, than to spend 4 or 5 years and come out of it at the end saying, I'm very proud of the fact that racing is not completely dead, which is sort of, I mean, I think that what we want to avoid, what anyone wants to avoid, I know she was CEO, not chair, is a Judy Harrington situation where basically for the last few years, no one seemed to know what she was doing or where she was. So I'd be very tempted to walk if I were him, if he's not getting anywhere early on.
It struck me that it's not it's not the kind of thing that Nick would have said lightly, walk away in a couple of months. Nick would be very well versed in the racecourse side. He obviously knows everybody in racing, but he's on the entry board, and I imagine they'll be talking about this and costs, etc. So for him to say he could walk away in a couple of months, then I would be tempted to believe that's a real possibility. I mean, he's 73-year-old man. He probably hasn't dealt with anything like people in horse racing before. Very intransigent, very inflexible. And if they've reneged on, agreeing to an independent board, as Bill Barber's piece in the Racing Post today suggests may be the case, then he just doesn't need it in his life, does he? He doesn't need the money, he doesn't need the hassle, and he doesn't need to be dealing with people that, as Harry said, just don't appear willing to bend.
Media rights does. The media rights issue does really now seem to be at the absolute epicenter of the whole storm in gambling and in horse racing. And I would have, it is, we've got this other side of it, which is bookmakers are increasingly they feel priced out by media rights. And it's perhaps a little bit odd that it's not been more front and center, this element of both sides of the debate. Why has racing not got enough money, and why are bookmakers making so little money on horsing? But it seems to have largely sidestepped the debate to now. I think that should have been much more front and center in the run up to the budget. And even after the budget, it's still not really being widely spoken about, although I understand a lot of bookmakers are very concerned about it.
It's going to be the death of horse racing if something doesn't change. I'd say the slow, painful death of it. Affordability obviously has taken away a lot of turnover. Moved it abroad. Taxation of what's left is going up, and then the last cab off the rank to be spoken of is media rights. And
but AK, why do you think that more bookmakers aren't just saying? And is this another example of bookmakers not being able to look into the long term for the profit they want to make next weekend? Why aren't they saying we're not paying this and we're not using your data and that's that?
It's the first mover disadvantage, I suppose. It's people terrified of you. If you're making that decision at a bookmaker, you're probably putting your job on the line if you get it wrong. And everyone else carries on just not making any money. But people are obsessed with not using horse racing to cross-sell. Horse racing doesn't make any money. It has to be cross-sold when it doesn't make any money for bookmakers. There's no other way. If you're just taking horse racing and not cross-selling, you're not making any money. If horse racing doesn't want to be cross-sold and wants to be promoted, it has to solve that.
But this is something that someone needs just to get to the bottom of, isn't it? Because there are two answers to this. One is horse racing inherently is an unprofitable product. Well, I don't think any of us believe that. Two is it is making money somewhere.
Oh, it does. It just doesn't make money for the people taking bets on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's making money somewhere.
I describe it as past the parcel. You bring in X amount of money on horse racing and you just pass the money out to providers and taxation, and you don't keep any of it. So why would you overinvest or even focus on something where if I sell something for, if I bring in 100 quid, make 10% on it and then give that 10% out to other people and I'm left with zero, in what world do you think that's going to be promoted above anything else? It just isn't.
Yeah, and I think that's something that horse racing doesn't, one side of the coin, that horse racing doesn't appreciate as well as it could.
Yeah, I think it's something art could appreciate, because my opinion is if everybody got together here and optimized this, the pie could grow massively. But everyone, as happens with fractured relationships and different things, as we've seen just generally in horse racing anyway, people just hang on to their little bit. They'd rather a bigger percentage of fuck all than grow the pie. And it takes everyone to come around to the table to optimize growing that. Like if you said to somebody, you can have 50% of 10 million quid or 20% of 200 million quid, everyone's just grabbing the 50%. And you're like, what are you doing? people don't want to dilute the percentage. It should be growing the pie.
I suspect your phrase of first mover disadvantage plays a big part in this as well, because the part, they're so entrenched in their positions now that the first person to make a move is gonna have to be quite brave, I suspect.
I think what also is part of this, and it's probably whether it's by luck or by chance, I'd imagine by luck or by crook or whatever, on purpose. A lot of these deals expire with different bookmakers at different times, which tends to lead to the next person who needs to renew or say no, renewing and hoping that the next person says no.
Yeah.
But it's a fairly bonkers market though, isn't it? Where what you're saying is you're charging so much for this that we can't really make any money out of it. But okay, yeah, we'll renew. I mean,
but it's that cross-selling element, which brings me on. It's why I talk about the ecosystem when we're talking about tax.
But I think that's something that racing
as a standalone product, you wouldn't take it.
And I think that's something that racing doesn't always fully appreciate when it's saying, "Oh, casinos come along and ruined everything." There is a huge element of that, in my view. But what they don't appreciate is that there's also a huge problem within horse racing, which is that it is selling itself too expensively to bookmakers, and you can't really blame them for cross-selling, as you say, in those circumstances.
I think there's another two elements to this. I think there's an element of people in racing don't believe in bookmakers, spin about how bad racing is, how expensive racing is to promote, and how much money they make out of it. And secondly, there are people in racing who do. Do you remember when there was that big standoff between the bookmakers and the BHA about not telling them about that day of protest in September? They came out and said, "Oh, but racing gives you a veneer of respectability as regards, casino, etc." I do think there's an element of people in horse racing in the upper echelons who think, bookmakers should be glad that they can bet on our sport, and I think that probably might be the fundamental problem of that, and the not believing factor.
They're certainly crept into it an element of moral superiority, which was foolish. But I think there is some strength actually in the argument that bookmakers need particularly as the world changes and the growth of casino, the legitimacy of betting on horse racing. I think there is a decent argument for that. But I agree that an attitude that ignores the fact of superiority, that it ignores the commercial realities, is extremely unhelpful.
I think it fancies itself still as the sport of kings, but it's the sport of paupers. It's not the sport.
But it's to do with the way it is less so, I accept, and less so every day. But it is an ingrained part of British culture, which is arguably going to be accepted for a much longer time than online roulette wheels are, and that is important for bookmakers.
I also think just as well, growing up outside horse racing, right? And even if you talk to my parents or whatever, or people in my family, they still think of horse racing as when they watch the Derby on TV and someone with a plummy accent trained a horse for the...
Nothing wrong with that.
Trained a horse for the king, and it's awash with money and stuff like that. And then you get involved in racing, or as I have, nobody's got a pot to piss in.
Yeah, no, there's no money in it. I mean, there's no money is made in it other than by some very, very bloodstock agents at the very top of it. The money comes from without horse racing in order to support it, even from the very rich owners,
Yeah. Yeah, we were slightly off topic there, lads. We'll just bring it back.
Sorry,
we can segue into, because you mentioned that there's first movers and people to make decisions, but we kind of have had that, haven't we? In a way with Betfred last week, we spoke about the blank screens, etc., and words this week or suggestions this week, sorry, from the likes of William Hill and Boyle Sports could follow the lead of Betfred in refusing to pay increased rates from the racing partnerships fees, as in the ARC tracks, and they potentially won't show actions from these courses if that is the case.
Can I just jump in there, Ronan?
Yeah, go on.
Well, everyone's been saying Betfred has stopped. They've stopped the footage. I still think they must be paying for the data because they're taking bets on it and they're putting the data up on their on their website and on their screen. So I don't think that it's quite right when people are saying that, or insofar as it's being implied that there's a complete breakdown in the deal. I think what they're not paying for is the footage.
Why would they pay for it and not show it?
Sorry, I think they're not paying for the footage, but I think they
Oh.
have to be. I think they have to be paying for the data in order to be taking back.
So I didn't know the answer to that question, Harry, because if that was the case, why are they stopping taking bets exactly at 2:30 to the 2:30 race? That doesn't make sense to me.
That I completely agree. There are elements of it that I don't necessarily understand why they have taken off things. They've taken off best odds guarantees. I think they've taken off all concessions.
I was guessing they weren't doing that. They weren't paying anything, but I don't know. Again, we don't really have the clarity there. And I think Ronan mentioned in his background info that we've heard various rumours about Boyle Sports. I mentioned.
Well, put it this way: do you think that we wouldn't? I don't think ARC would take it sitting down if Betfred was simply trying to get around this by using publicly available data from the tracks and placing bets on it, and just getting around it by not showing the races on in their shops and online. I think that I'm relatively sure that ARC certainly take the view that the data from the track, the going, off time, runners, is their data, and that you have to pay for it.
But isn't that exactly what the BHA are trying to charge the race courses more?
So the BHA, as I understand it, only from that article on the Racing Post, is that the BHA collate that data, charge a fee to ARC, and ARC then sell it. But they are an agent of ARC, I think, in collating that data. It's not theirs. They don't sell the data. And I think that the article said that they are expressly prohibited from giving it to anyone else. And according to that article, which was very good, assuming it's right, it's very good, is that what's the concern of ARC is that at a certain point that deal is going to run out. And are the BHA under this new commercial wing, which it's talking about, which new commercial purpose, are they going to see? I suspect ultimately what ARC are worried about is the BHA collate the data. Is there a danger that the BHA starts selling the data direct to bookmakers and cuts out TRC? I think, reading between the lines, that is what they're concerned about.
From a bookmaker point of view, again, we don't know.
Not TRC, what are they called? Yeah, no, TRC.
Yeah. I suppose we don't know. I know you say ARC take the view that that's their data. I'm not sure that particular aspect of it has ever been tested. As in, at what point does this data just become public information? I don't know.
Well, there's this case, which I have to confess I've not read the judgment of SIS and ARC, where what's it called, the racing
TRP.
Racing Partnership, sorry, TRP. They packaged the media rights for a certain number of courses, including ARC. They took over from SIS, I think in about 2016, 2017. I think that what happened was SIS continued to try and use data from
it did, but like I think I might be totally wrong here, but is there not a distinction between what SIS was doing in that case with what? Say
you may well be right.
Doesn't take the data and then settles a race 20 minutes later on publicly available information, isn't using the same channels, or if they're literally.
I think it massively depends. Will depend what data you're using and when, and whether you're getting it from the track at the time.
Well, this is probably, it. What I think could blow this whole thing apart potentially is just using bookmakers just saying, do you know what? If we're not taking this, we're not taking the data. This is publicly available information, and we'll just put horse racing cards up. We'll type them out manually, put them on our site at 11 a.m., and we'll take them down.
I completely, the same thing occurs to me, and two reasons that hasn't been done. One is it has been done, and they've worked out that it doesn't work. That legally, that they are going to get sued by TRP if they do it. Two is they've not thought to do it. I think that it is still a matter of great confusion at the very top of horse racing as to who exactly owns what data-wise.
I'm just not sure that SIS case
No, I've got to look at that.
100% applies
but
to
you asked
the
whether there was
scenario that I give and that scenario hasn't been ruled on. And everyone goes, "Oh, Ark will sue you, Ark will sue you." Probably will, but I don't know what they'd have to, because it'd be unbelievably
it's
detrimental if they
interesting.
lost.
Without going too far, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as far as I'm aware, certainly, I'm pretty sure this is the case. I've never done any media rights in racing. I've done greyhound racing, but you know, the Lawn Tennis Association don't say to bookmakers, "You've got to pay us for us to tell you what time the matches are going off at Wimbledon and who's in them and who's the umpire." They don't charge for data like that. And I don't think I'm unaware of any other major sport that does it like that. But horse racing does appear to.
It's interesting. It's interesting. My understanding is, I know we've spoke about, not my understanding, I've heard, obviously the biosports rumours are probably, I mentioned them on the podcast last week without having heard anything. And since then I've heard that just given the size of them as an independent, it wouldn't surprise if they were the next cab off the rank, so to speak. There's talk of William Hill not doing certain things with ARC in the near future. My understanding is, as well, of somebody in the industry just mentioned that potentially Jennings have signed. I don't know how many shops Jennings have online. They're very small, I think. Do they have 50 or 60 shops? I don't even know. It might even be bigger than that. I don't know. But my understanding is they have signed with ARC and they are an independent bookmaker. And this is where different approaches come into effect in the scenarios we explained earlier. Of some people do, some people don't. First move a disadvantage. Be interesting to see how it all develops anyway.
We'll move it on, lads, to Nigel Farage's mates now betting offshore. Thanks to William Kijani, who sent this clip on to you, Tony. I think it was a clip of Nigel Farage on Times Radio on Wednesday. I'm just going to read you out a little quote that he made about, or a little comment he made about gambling taxes. So he said, take gambling taxes, think of our high streets. They're dominated by bookmakers and charity shops. I promise you, in a year's time, most of those bookmakers will be gone because of the recent changes on gambling taxes in the budget. And what you're seeing with horse racing and football betting is that it is either going to the black market or it is mostly going abroad. Most of my friends that bet now bet with offshore bookmakers just because it has become so uncompetitive and difficult here. AK.
Well, we know this happens anyway. Like, we can talk, like, it was only a couple of years ago. Some people weren't acknowledging the black market at all. Now we're acknowledging its existence and the threat of it. And I think everyone's just two steps behind everything. It's miles bigger than people think and are acknowledging in the present day. And this sort of stuff just doesn't surprise me. It's par for the course, to be honest with you. It's very, very rare. I think you get a senior politician coming out with stuff as explicitly as this, but essentially telling the truth, telling the reality of the situation. It's I think everybody, it's like, what is it in London? You're 6 feet away from a rat. You're probably 6 contacts away in your phone from somebody who's got an account at the black market bookmaker. It's not gonna stop. And similar to racegoers that go racing when there's nobody there and have a bad experience and don't come back. I think the problem horse racing and betting in the UK has just that this is dragging on for years and years and years. Various friction from various sides in the UK market. Once you lose them, if they're getting paid, do they come back? Probably creating a lot of problems harm wise and just from a lost generation, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah. Harry, can I just ask you, is that any way significant, him say, someone like Nigel Farage saying that obviously on a public platform, or does it mean anything, or will it, it's just very unusual to hear someone like that say something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, of course it is, because he could very well be prime minister in not very long, and you've got to be very careful, of course, of taking people at their word before they become prime minister when matters change. What I think is quite interesting, without getting too into the politics of it, is I think people think reform is a sort of libertarian movement. Increasingly, it isn't. It's a populist movement that has worked out that actually the welfare state is quite a popular thing, and it's politically quite strange as a result. It sort of mixes policies of the sort of libertarian right, but also quite traditionally left-wing policies as well. And for that reason, it was always slightly hard to work out what position it might take on gambling if it gets into power. But it does seem that their approach to it, judging by that, is much more on the liberal side of gambling, and that I think is probably, you know, a good sign if there is to be a reform government for people in horse racing and gambling. You can't imagine, I suppose, people like, for example, Derek Webb, James Noyes, Matt Zard-Cousin, being the natural bedfellows of Richard Tice and Nigel Farage. So I suppose people might be encouraged by that. Yeah.
The devil in me was looking at that reform price of evens for most seats and going, I wonder what percentage chance I'd have of being the reform MP for Rochdale and just rowing all this stuff back.
I think judging on past form, I'd make you fav if you if you stood for reform.
Worrying me, I think you might be right. But yeah, that'd be quite.
They don't seem to be too fussy at the application stage.
That'd be quite the way to roll back some of this stuff. Would be to get elected, but I can't see it happening.
You heard it here first. See how that one develops. We'll move it on, lads, to worrying times at Chelmsford. So it's a story from Peter Scargill in the Racing Post last week. So staff at Chelmsford Racecourse received only 80% of their salaries on Wednesday, with management blaming the underpayment on circumstances beyond our control. Affected staff working at Chelmsford, which the Racing Post understands totals approximately 40 people, were informed by Neil Graham, director of racing at the track, via message on Wednesday afternoon that they would not be paid in full, but that efforts were being made to resolve the matter. Graham wrote, "Dear all, due to circumstances beyond our control, the company is only in a position to pay everyone 80% of their salary today, and with the remaining 20% to be paid later, next Friday, as in today, actually. We have been working tirelessly to overcome this issue and can only apologise for the inconvenience that it may cause. Should any of you be suffering undue hardship as a result of this circumstances, then please contact either head of finances operations at the course or myself, and we will endeavour to help you. I offer my sincerest apologies and assure you that we'll be working to get everyone paid as soon as possible." Neil Graham then declined to comment when he was asked for a comment by the Racing Post on Thursday, Tony. So this is quite a serious situation for Chelmsford in general, obviously on a macro scale for the course of what's actually going on, but also, as we read out there, to staff who aren't being paid their full salary.
Yeah, I mean, you would have hoped the BHA or somebody should have had an input in here as well. I know the track has been the subject of a bit of gossip. I mean, I had a look back from my WhatsApps, and on July 31st, I got this from somebody: "Keep your ear to the ground, RE Chelmsford's future." I'm not saying anything imminent, but there are financial issues apparently. That was, like I said, that was from the end of July, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. But it's, if you've got a track that's only paying 80% of wages and they're declining to comment why, you have to think there's some serious problems there. I think Peter actually put this in further background to this. He said, "Accounts for Great Leys Estates Limited, the company which operates Chelmsford Racecourse, are overdue on Companies House with filings for the year ending August 2024, having been required by November the 27th last year. In its most recent filing in August 2023, the company reported a loss of 11.86 million in the previous 12 months. Now,
Okay.
I mean, those are very, very worrying figures for for the future of any racecourse. And only yesterday, Chelmsford were given an additional fixture on Sunday, and I put out a tweet yesterday saying, you'd hope the BHA had seek assurances when giving that fixture out that the people running that operation at the weekend will have been paid in full. Otherwise, I don't think.
Where does a racecourse lose 12 million quid?
I mean,
racecourse.
It has had a very, very kind of like controversial and quite involved background. I mean, it was originally called Great Lees, and and I think ownership changed, etc. But when you've got staff not being paid in full, and that racecourse being given additional fixtures at very short notice on a Sunday, you'd hope, like I said, you'd hope that the BHA would have seeking assurances that these guys have been paid in full and will be paid in full. But
if I don't know anything about this, but if you're losing 12 million quid, is there some kind of ground rent there, or is there some kind of leasing thing, or is there? You'd imagine, again, not knowing anything about this, but every additional fixture, I'm just assuming, is not making money. So why would you even want additional fixtures? Like, is there an economies of scale of fixtures, media rights? I'm just trying to work it out in my head. What is
like most things in racing, just a very, very murky picture, isn't it? And
if you're getting emails in July flagging that, and they've hung on from here until it's publicly available that wages aren't being paid. Mad that they get extra fixtures. Sorry, Harry, I cut over you there.
No, not at all. I was wondering if the BHA have actually commented on this. I hadn't seen that they had, Tony.
No. I was going to get in touch with them, but obviously it'd be too overnight. But it would be too soon for them to comment on. I mean, they should be commenting upon this, and it should have been dependent on those people being paid, them giving an extra fixture. But there was a lot of talk about people just saying, I think Betfred are sponsoring Sunday's card. But apparently, the list of fixtures coming up Chelmsford, they've got no sponsors attached to the race names in the fixtures in the racing calendar. So I don't know what's going on there.
Probably why they've no money.
The guy who sent me that text at the end of July would be pretty clued up. So if this has been going on for over 6 months, then maybe kind of like chickens are coming home to roost now. But
I always think as well, when the first little chinks show of just salaries just not fully being paid, that it's always like someone's just pushing that snowball down the hill, and these things can escalate pretty quick. From a structure point of view, the one thing I'd comment on is there's 6 all-weather tracks in the UK. 4 of them are owned by ARC. One of them is Chelmsford, which we're talking about here from a financial issues perspective. The other one is Kempton, which could potentially be sold.
But
if you're looking at 4 tracks, though, your all-weather program isn't far off being 100% ARC there. If I was the jockey club, I'd potentially definitely inquire. I'd maybe not fix that roof at Cheltenham and maybe try and acquire an all-weather track that's already built, perhaps. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think you want to be too fully reliant on.
We sold Kempton, but don't worry, everyone. We bought Chelmsford.
King George will be class there. Lady of Hislop will have a heart attack.
Yeah, bring back all-weather jumps racing. Like double in the 90s.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, the welfare lot would love that.
The true test of a thoroughbred. Chelmsford on a Sunday night. With 250
We're featuring speed dating. Yeah.
Jukebox man swinging around the bend there at Chelmsford, just miles away from the stand. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant.
Stands in the middle. I've never been, but the stands in the middle of the track, isn't it? Or something ridiculous. Anyway.
We're moving on, gents, to the Ben Bromley retirement at just the age of 23. This is another story in the Racing Post by Catherine McRae. So that PGA boss Paul Struthers has praised Ben Bromley for speaking up about the challenges he faced, which led to his decision to quit the saddle at the age 23. The conditional jockey had his last ride at Wetherby over Christmas before quitting, citing the stress and pressures associated with the job last Sunday. Bromley, who rode 43 winners over a 6-year period, said he was in a really bad place mentally and was relieved to finally retire from the saddle. And Struthers urged any jockey experiencing similar pressures to make use of the sport available to them through the PGA, Injured Jockeys Fund, and Sporting Chance, which is a British mental health charity tailored to current and former athletes. So quite a sad story in ways, but an insightful story as well, Harry. It's just that Ben Bromley's decided that he doesn't really want to go on at the age of 23 with the pressures of the job he was taking.
It's a really tough job, and it's not very well paid at all. The distances they have to travel, the weight that they have to maintain, and while traveling those distances, the driving, the early mornings, you've got to ride work, you've got to maintain your relationships with your owners. If you miss a day, if you don't ride their horse one morning, if you get ill, or you miss a race, like, they're all terrified of annoying a trainer or owner, which means that you don't get rides from them anymore. So it's like indentured servitude to a lot of these junior jockeys. And then when you add to that, they're often very young and very attached to social media, where they're 95% of what's being written about them is abusive because of losing punters. So I think it's fair play to him at 23 just to decide actually enough's enough. But it's they're very lucky to have Paul Struthers, looking after them. There's only so much he can do. But I think I'm sorry, it all goes back to there not being enough money in horse racing, and it being in the wrong places.
We probably have discussed this before, but is there any way, Harry, or systematically that you can't do anything about the social media stuff? Well, that's just always going to be there. But can the BHA or can you save these guys from themselves? As in, you do 7 days a week in the car. I think. Can you say you do 6 days? You can only do 6 days a week. You can only do 5 days a week. Obviously, they used to do
The
double meetings
difficulty with that. What you've got to, the difficulty is always that when you are talking about the jockeyship as a group, you've got Ryan Moore, William Buick at one end, and then you've got 16, 17-year-old claimers at the other, and coming up with policies that suit both or are in the interest of both is borderline impossible. I mean, a very good example of that is the one meeting a day rule. If you can get a private jet to fly you between meetings, you're driven mad by the fact that you can only have a couple of rides at one meeting and then not fly off and have a couple of rides somewhere else. If what you're doing is getting the megabus between Ayr and Chelmsford or wherever, that's a very different kettle of fish, and you're delighted that you can't be put under pressure by trainers and owners to ride two tracks on the same day. So it's really difficult to come up with those kind of policies.
Yeah, me and Dave Tyrrell are doing Naas and Dundalk today. Don't tell Dave.
Get the megabus, Dave. Yeah. One thing striking about this is I think Ben would probably been insulated from a lot of the issues that other jockeys have in these situations, because Ben is the son of Anthony Bromley, the bloodstock agent, and obviously the double green, etc., that Ben had a few rides for. So yeah, it's quite striking.
I take that point, but I also know a lot of jockeys who are the sons of and daughters of very high-profile people in racing, and it's actually still that attitude of when you're very young, regardless of who you are, you've got to earn your stripes, and I've not seen particularly favourable treatment to jockeys who are from racing families, I have to say. But look, I take your point.
Ryan Cooper's similar over here, I'd say, Ronan, just from a background perspective as well. I'm always massively impressed with these people. Like Ben Bromley, congratulations, I think, on the decision. If you're not enjoying something, I always find the most miserable people are the ones that just put up with situations where they don't like. I much prefer people to make bad decisions than make no decisions, and learn from bad decisions. Too many people don't make decisions, I always think. And congratulations on the decision. And you never know what's around the corner. Could be unbelievable. So good luck.
Yeah. Ronan's looking forward to the day he turns around to you and quits.
I know.
Yeah,
You'll be the head of the HRI soon.
Okay, we'll finish the last few points a little bit quicker, lads, because we're a bit tight on time. But we'll do the horse racing bettors forum post on Twitter. Punters, would you like to see bookmakers offer place only markets? AK, you can jump in here.
Oh, don't.
I think let's be fair, they were probably all restricted from any bookmakers accounts 20 years ago, so they perhaps haven't looked for a while.
Yeah, I don't even know where you begin with that. It's I've said some things probably was too over critical of them in the past, given that I don't know, they're probably volunteers, but I just don't think they get anything done. And when I saw that, I couldn't believe that tweet, to be honest with you. So I just don't get what their purpose is, to be honest, at this stage. But that's it.
We'll less said the better then, perhaps. We'll go on to Betfred posting profits of 129 million following US exit and improved performance. So Betfred have returned a profit according to the bookmaker's latest set of accounts lodged with Companies House. The company revealed last week to be in a media rights impasse with racecourses under the ARC and TRP banner, but made a profit tax of 128.8 million in the 78 weeks to March 30th, 2025, compared to a loss of 71.7 million in the previous 53-week period. Anyone want to jump in there? We can.
Betfred in the US was probably just how not to go into a big new territory. It was just to me, look from the outside looking in, it was probably a car crash from day one. Just speaking to some lads I know out there, it was just farcical from a customer perspective as well. They were never big enough to go into the US. I don't think. US is huge. The burn ratio in the US would be absolutely off the charts, and they just weren't big enough essentially. And whoever made the decision to cut the cord was the right decision. Probably could have made it a lot sooner as well. It was just, I thought it was doomed to struggle.
Okay. And final one topic before we get into questions was BHA announcing some scheduling changes to 2026. So they just released a statement saying, as announced alongside the publication of the 2026 fixture list this year, we will move away from the blanket protected window and adopt a more targeted approach to our major races. The goal remains the same: to ensure our most important races receive the prominence they deserve. But rather than applying this across all fixtures, we will focus on approximately 100 major Saturday races throughout 2026. Tony, do you want to come in there quickly?
Yeah, they ditched the Premier Racing windows. They're going to focus on the better races. They're going to have a clear 10-minute window up to each of the 100 races that you mentioned. The one possible bone of contention is that to facilitate this, the gaps between some races at some race courses will be up to 45 minutes. And the BHA said something on the lines of it gives courses more time to, connect with their audience and do something different. 45 minutes between races isn't ideal, but we're only dealing with 100 races here, so we shouldn't.
Dating and the likes.
Yeah. 45 minutes between races. I mean, is that good or bad for bookmakers? I don't know.
It's good for speed dating, I'd say.
I think 45 minutes is a bit long.
It's bad if you're paying by the hour, I'd say. Yeah. It's not great.
It's a great line from Alf Williamson about dating, but I won't say it here. We might lose our Apple Clean license. Actually, Anthony hasn't sworn yet, so
Yeah, he has.
oh, was he? Oh,
Yeah, early doors, he got it in.
Did I?
Yeah.
When I think back to when I first started going on first dates and stuff, I'd be lucky to get to 45 minutes, to be honest with you. Before
if it was a competition, how quickly you could do speed dating, I think that would be more up our street.
Yeah,
0.3 seconds kind of thing.
We'll take questions. We have 5 questions to do, lads. First one from A Lucky A Day. So expanding on a post by Chris Fawcett on the morality of professional gambling, do the panel think professional gamblers bring any benefit to society, or for that matter, to anyone but themselves? Normally, as a professional, you are paid because you provide benefit. to someone. Tony, do you want to jump in there first?
Yeah, I did an interview with Simon Knott in 2021 where I called professional punters parasites and particularly got a massive pile on here, which I was kind of expecting. But no, they don't contribute anything, do they? They don't pay taxes. The ones in the purest sense, they don't pay taxes. They don't do anything else. A lot of them had side gigs where they do pay tax on and employ staff. So that was pointed out to me by a few people. But amazingly, when you speak to the people a couple rang me up, and after a couple of minutes, they agreed that no, they don't pay any taxes, etc. So hope they go private when their leg gets chopped off in an accident.
Contribute to the efficiency of markets, I think, technically. But
when you were a full-time pro punter, did you reflect on the fact that you gave nothing to society, Anthony, or not?
Yeah, and that's why you decided to become a bookmaker.
It's all about we can
give it a
dress
little
it
back.
Can dress it up however we like, but it's all about the dinero at the end of the day. And that's what it was all about. So,
yeah. No, I did.
More, as Noel Gallagher says in that interview.
David Murphy's asking, how many real professional gamblers are there? Most so-called pro gamblers have many other sources of income, which I'm sure they pay tax on. Sorry, I definitely should have brought that question in at the first one. I think we more or less answered that,
How
David.
many
So
professional gamblers are there is a good question.
Yeah, it is actually. I thought this.
I wouldn't know the answer, but I also don't consider anybody who does anything paid to be a professional gambler as well. So
I think I agree with that.
You're a professional gambler.
There's certainly a few of them out there.
It's your sole.
I'd say more than people think.
Yeah, if it's your sole source of income, you're a professional. If it isn't,
I wouldn't have thought there'd be that many, would there? Because they all.
No, I think there are quite a lot. I think you'd be. I think
you probably represented 100%.
Well, I think there are an awful lot, and you have to bear in mind that their modus operandi is to just stay under the radar.
5,000. What do we say?
Oh, in terms of putting a number on it, I wouldn't have a clue. But I think there are a lot more people doing it, and it's much easier to learn how to do than ever it was because of the internet and the places that can.
It's much easier to learn how to do it wrong as well. Is one of the.
It is easier to learn how to do it wrong, but it's easier. And a lot of them start off. Funny enough, in my experience, a lot of them start off with match betting. They sign up to these groups that teach you how to make 40 quid with 3 hours of your time by signing up and exploiting bonus opportunities. And then when they get shut down by everything, they move on to actually learning how to bet themselves. That happens quite a lot.
Very good. Andre Jordan is asking, when the all-weather is not the all-weather, and over-optimistic clerk of the courses who wait until midday before calling meetings off without any recompense for all those involved who travel to the racecourse. There's no question in there, but I think it's just having a moan about the all-weather tracks, giving meetings every chance to be fuming with Wolverhampton today, I suppose. But what do you reckon, Tony? Is there a point there?
Not really. When it was brought in, that was obviously the punchy catch-all, wasn't it? Description, and obviously it's not the same. I mean, if you've got -8 degrees 3 nights running, we had earlier in the week, and Southall had to abandon today, it's inevitable, isn't it? And it's not only the track anyway. You've got the surrounding areas, so that has to be health and safeties. And if it's freezing and snow everywhere and ice everywhere, you have to think about the pain.
In Clement Racing didn't have quite the same ring to it when they were thinking of what to call it.
Yeah, but hopefully Wolverhampton tonight goes ahead because that's one all-weather fixture that we're all rooting for.
Okay, Sam Wilson, I think he has a point here. I'm going to let you come in first, Harry, on this. But before he's retired from hurdling, shouldn't Constitution Hill be given a chance to see if the problem could be fixed by another different jockey or trainer? Not criticising Nick Henderson or Nick at the Boinville, but in any other sport or field or endeavour, wouldn't this be the obvious solution?
Well, who makes the decision in this world where I mean, you can't ask the horse what it wants to do. Who, in the interests of fans and punters, yes, but that's just not how it works. We don't.
I think he's on about the owner, isn't he? Is he on about?
Yeah, someone paid the owner, Michael. I can't remember his name at the moment.
Okay.
Pays a small fortune and to an extremely old friend who is is extremely gifted trainer. I just think we're just in fancy land, aren't we? Isn't that the problem with
But
this festival?
just to paint the overall picture, I suppose they've in a very unique situation where there's a huge amount of social pressure on them now with the horse, and I don't think that they definitely haven't known what to do or have been thinking about it a lot, what to do. And this thing about trying to run him a mile and a half on the flat, I think they're looking for something. I think it's become so big now. I think they're nearly afraid of it, and
Mm.
this is
So
a
you
potential
think
solution.
you think they're too close to the horse to make a
I
sound
think
judgment?
there's just huge. They're afraid of their lives running over hurdles again. If it falls, because there's huge pressure. If something more serious happened to it, that's huge for the sport as a whole. And I think they're looking for some sort of way out of some way. And this is potentially just something to say, right, let's just give someone else a chance with it. It's nothing against Nicky Henderson, nothing against
No,
Nicholas Wine, but let's see what Willie Mullins
I
could do with it, or
I think it'd
or
be
or
absolute,
Dan
but
Skelton.
absolutely. But can't you say the same thing about Haaland at Manchester City, or Salah at Liverpool, saying, "Oh, he's not having a great season. Wouldn't it be great if he went to Real Madrid?" So, yeah, I mean, if we're playing fantasy ownership and fantasy training, but like it's not our. There's huge dynamics involved in this and personalities involved in it. It's not just I'm not sure that I find the question slightly bizarre.
The social media pressure is self-inflicted as well. Since I followed horse racing, there's never been so much talk about a horse that's achieved so little. One good
Hey,
in 2023. It's 3 years ago. Like,
he put up a performance in the Supreme that was off the charts.
fucking
And
achieved
then he
so
won the
little.
champion hurdle on the bridle from the future champion hurdler. I mean,
Years ago. Why are we still
at,
talking about it now?
at his peak, he was brilliant. But I think the premise of the question obviously is flawed because the owner's not going to do anything. But the worst case scenario is if the owner passed the buck and gave the horse to Willie Mullins and he ran it over hurdles and something happened to the horse,
That'd be some
we need a
crap.
bigger furore.
Well, exactly. I'm not sure that the pressure reduces if you send it to another trainer. I think if anything, you then create a real powder keg
Yeah.
of what's going to happen for its first and potentially only run with this new trainer. The problem is the hype is really the problem, and the hype because there's not very much else to talk about in national hunt racing.
I agree. It's the whole thing is self-inflicted. And when I've said at the time that they ruled up when they didn't run the horse when the horse was riding well and pulling the horse out on the ground and stuff. And I think that's come back to haunt them to an
Dominic
extent as
Matchum
well.
just tweeted me and said, "Don't worry about the welfare angle, just run over fences. Not an issue."
Dead to me.
I don't think it's the worst idea, to be honest.
Dead to me since they ducked. Was it Honeysuckle they ducked at Punchestown?
Paris put up the 100 grand as well for them to come
Dead
over.
to me since that decision.
You're very adventurous with other people's property and money, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
It's
lads,
hard
we'll,
enough finding people to pay training fees and racing without then, hammering them for not doing what you want with the horses.
indeed. I knew that question would garner a bit of debate. Thanks for that, Sam. We do one more question from David Brown. We've already seen bookmakers shorten horses they wouldn't run, i.e., ran previous to. Oh God, David didn't do me no favors here. Should have looked at this question before. Why isn't this working?
Basically, he thinks bookmakers pull a fast one by reducing prices to increase reduction factors about horses that he knows is going to be a non-runner. Basically,
Okay.
I think we've all got quite a low opinion of some bookmakers, but I can't believe that happens. What normally happens is they track the exchange and
That's exactly it.
then people just try to mess around with the reduction factor on the exchange. Bookmakers follow, cut the prices, because of the no liquidity.
That's it. That's exactly it. Whatever aggregators people use, smaller bookmakers and bigger bookmakers, and people are tracking the exchange, and it changes on the exchange. People are trying to. Sometimes it works the other way, and it's people messing around with Rule 4 deductions and whatever they call it on the machine. Reduction charges and stuff like that. You can get slight anomalies. There's no bookmakers. I think there's been one instance where I've ever seen publicly where a bookmaker, they didn't even get reprimanded from memory. It was the David Evans Ladbrokes case. Does anybody remember?
Oh God, yes.
Harry, someone in the David Evans rung Ladbrokes, and I think this is on record, so I'm happy enough to say it. Placed a bet and said my horse ain't going to be running in that race or something like that, and then the trader at Ladbrokes shortened the horse up. That's the only recorded instance of this I've ever seen, and traders barely exist anymore in horse racing. So, for me, it's just a bet for exchange derived moved at the last minute. I'd say it's not bookmakers intentionally doing that, from my experience. I sat in a race room in Powers for 10 years, and that never happened once. So.
Lovely. We'll leave it there. So, gentlemen, and we'll call it quits for this week, our second Friday podcast. Also left to say, as the usual, you're having a bet this week. Do check out the AK Bets Big Prices tab. We have FA Cup weekend as well as wildcard weekend in the NFL, which I'm looking forward to as well. Racing wise, probably quality wise, not as much, and hopefully a few tracks get to go ahead this week with likes of Kempton and Warwick taking centre stage, and Naas obviously today with Punchestown and Fairyhouse on in Ireland over the weekend. Hopefully all get the all clear. Thanks to the lads for their contributions. Thanks to you for your questions and for listening, and we'll see you around this time next week. Cheers.